All right, well, today we're going to discuss agency. And agency, like Scott said already, is the foundation of everything we do. And if we don't understand our value proposition, there's no point of us existing. Just to be honest, because you will get in trouble. So it's not in front of you, but can anybody share with me when you're supposed to discuss agency with a human being?
As soon as you have that meeting and start doing real estate things.
Yeah, before a substantive conversation in regards to real estate, period. So the moment they go to tell you, hey, let me tell you why I want to sell my house, you're actually supposed to halt them. Does that feel good as a human to halt someone in the middle of their passion of telling you everything? No, but do we have a legal obligation to do so? All right, so someone tell me, like, we're at a party and I'm like, Carla, I heard you're a real estate agent and I want to sell my house because, and I start going, what do you do?
We can have a meeting at the office.
Okay, so
Schedule something.
yeah, like you tell me to stop talking, right? And you schedule me. Okay, what else could we do? Oh, by the way, you redid your nails
Yes,
and
I
they're
did.
gorgeous, still
Thank
super
you.
long. What else could you do?
I didn't.
So we're at a party, Buzz, and I'm like, Buzz, I hear you're a real estate agent. I'm so excited to talk to you. I want to sell my house. Let me tell you why.
Right. That's awesome, Mandy. How about if we set up a time outside of this chaotic room here and we can talk more about it and get specific?
Okay, cool.
What I say is, have you mentioned that to any other realtor before you mentioned it to me?
And why would you say that?
Because they might be committed to somebody else. And I can't represent them, and I have to be clear that before they say something to me, I have to know if I'm gonna represent them. or not.
Okay, and if they say, yeah, I've talked to other people, but I didn't sign with anybody.
Why don't you and I talk?
Okay. You want to try with?
I was kind of thinking the same thing, like, have you spoke to anybody else about real estate and just kind of, if they've signed like a broker disclosure? like-
Okay, but this is selling, like the
Oh, so
example.
like, oh, okay, yeah, I would just set up a time, hey, when are you available that we could speak outside of this?
Okay, awesome. Aaron?
I'm here to party. That's what
That's too short time on that.
I'm drinking right now, whatever you tell me.
I love that.
Okay, so I go about it a little bit different than you guys did. And I love where y'all came from, where you stopped them and said, let's set up a time. But I actually go one step further, and it seems to have, come on in, Jody. It seems to have worked in the past of gaining loyalty and respect right away. And something I like to say to people is, hey, hold up, before you tell me too much, I need to set up a confidential meeting with you and have these discussions, because at the end of the day, until you elect to hire me as your representative, I have no confidentiality with you, and I want to advocate for you. So let's set up a time and let's have a lot of fun tonight, and let's not slip up with tequila shots. So we will definitely be speaking of other things. But before we start doing those shots, why don't we get our timing on the calendar right now? Because I like to go into, like, right from the beginning, I do not have confidentiality with you until you sign with me. Because if I don't, what do I give them? Implied agency. If I let someone just rattle as a professional, I have given implied agency. And that's not okay with me. I don't want implied. Are you okay? I know I do this a lot. Okay. I don't want implied agency, and I want someone to understand the importance of hiring me to be their professional right from the get-go. Now that might feel weird, but I'm going to tell you, every time I've done it, someone's like, no one's ever said that to me before. No one's ever stopped me from telling them my bottom line and said, hey, hold up, I want to help you, not hinder you. Right? Because we could go a lot of ways with implied agency, but at the end of the day, I want to avoid all costs, and I want them to know, to have a serious conversation with me, they need to sit down with me as a professional. I don't want to be the 7 people that night that is just blabbery, blah, blah, implied agency. I want to be the person you sign with. I want to be the person that has confidentiality with you and becomes your advocate. However, I also want to set you up for what we're going to discuss today, which is to be prepared for limited representation, which is also known as dual agency. How many of you think dual agency is an icky word? Yeah, dual agency to the consumer does not feel good, does it? They go, ew, so you're just making all the money. You're like, oh, I so wish. Yes, let me make all the money. No, dual agency can be one or two professionals under the same umbrella of the designated broker. So our designated broker is Ron Copus, and he oversees, per how the umbrella is written, 8 office locations within Maricopa County and a few satellite offices outside of that. But anybody under Ron's umbrella that does business in the same transaction is dual agency. It doesn't have to be an icky word if we do things right. So since you all have some, you need a pen. Everybody have a pen? Pen. You need a pen? Yeah. And sorry, Art, I jumped right into
Okay.
it, so I guess I'm keeping you.
That's right.
Oh, yeah, and Scott, wait, Scott, I gave you one. Didn't I? Was I not that nice? of you? You need a pen? Only because that's your love. You're terrible. You're never right. Here you go, my friends. I want you to think for a moment on recognizing the difference between single agency, dual agency scenarios. So in your sheet, you have 5 questions in front of you. And the answer is either going to be this is single agency, or this is dual agency, or it has the possibility for both. So right in front of you, 1 through 5, go ahead and answer those independently. Because if we can't recognize it, we can't teach to it. And if you are on Facebook Live at the moment, you shall be looking at these scenarios in front of your face on the shared screen. So please go ahead and answer them for yourselves. Hey, Buzz, nice pen.
Thank you. This has 2 answers. There's 2 parts of this one. The also part. And then the first part. You did the also part. Don't remember section 2. Number 2 definitely has 2 answers. Scott, I didn't write these. Okay, while we're all finishing up, I need to give some limelight time to Arts and Bree with Rock Title. They have joined us today for our meeting, and Art is an escrow officer that is upstairs, and he's bilingual and he's an amazing guy. Would you like to say hi?
Hi, everybody. Nice to see you. I know I've seen some of you guys at the meetings before. on last meeting, so I just, I just want you guys to know I'm here to help you with whatever I can, questions, escrow questions, transactions. I've got 30 years experience doing this, so I've seen pretty much everything this industry had to offer. All right.
Awesome. Bree?
Hi everyone, Bree Kruger. I'm your marketing rep, so if you need some help with lead gen or marketing, I'm happy to put that together with you, an individual plan for just you. We also have our grand opening this Wednesday from 3 to 6, so we hope that you guys all come. It'll be directly upstairs, and we'll be doing the ribbon cutting with the chamber and all. It'll be easy, it'll be great.
Awesome. And everybody should attend the grand opening.
Who are you under?
Here's Scott. I didn't mean to give you a big.
Oh.
Okay, so number one, and by the way, I'm very thankful for Rock Title. They do rock and they are located right above us and they have more coffee as a selection than we do down here. So make sure to visit upstairs. Number one, limited or dual. Everybody raise your hand for, single or dual. Everybody raise your hand for single. Okay, everybody raise your hand for dual. Don't think we need to discuss that one any further. You got it right. Part 1 of section 2, single or limited representation. Raise your hand for single for part 1. Yep, so now everybody raised their hand. Hey, Melissa, are you joining us? You go to your office.
I'm just gonna throw this down, but I'll be right back.
Okay, so part 1, a salesperson in your same company produces a buyer who purchases your brother's home. And your brother is selling for sale by owner, which means he did not utilize you. I'm not going to pre-think that he had a discussion with you. And he's selling it as a for sale by owner. Therefore, that would be single agency and an uninvited brother for gifts and holiday parties.
Well, I'm not-
Okay,
It doesn't look to me like I'm even involved in that deal.
you're not.
So I don't have a customer, and I'm a client, I don't have anything.
No, but as somebody in your office sold his house.
It doesn't make me anything, I'm not involved in the deal.
Right, but it's what type of agency is it? So it'd be single agency for your brokerage because a salesperson in your same company produces a buyer
For the brokerage, not.
for the
me.
brokerage, right? So the brokerage has single agency. Okay, now let's pretend you did represent your brother and someone from your company brought the buyer. Dual. And what else needs to be disclosed on top of consent for limited representation up front when it comes to you representing a family member?
Related to the.
Right, the conflict of interest there, the courts see it as, how wouldn't you be advocating? I would like you to know that not all E&O insurance carriers cover dual agency if you are related to somebody else. However, if properly disclosed, ours does. Those are additional, in insurance world, what I've learned is they're called riders in our E&O when they speak to us. What they're really called, I have no idea. But there's additional policies purchased on top of your basic policy to allow it to be covered. Therefore, always make sure everything is fully disclosed up front in the offer or counter offers. I hear agents, hey Barb, come on in, bring a chair. There's one right there. They always like to say, well, Mandy, we didn't mean not to tell them, so we're going to do an addendum after the fact. Yeah, it was disclosed prior to close of escrow. I get that, but I'm going to let you know right now, Houston, we have an issue if something goes down. So make sure not to get lazy and start doing addendas just to get a deal done based on a disclosure. Always make sure it was part of the original negotiations. You personally are selling an investment property in which you have a 50% ownership interest. An unrepresented buyer asks you to write the contract. Single agency or limited rep?
Neither, you better not do it. You can't possibly represent the buyer because you are part of the seller.
Okay, but there is some type of agency there. Nope. I love you guys. This one's actually single agency. You can only represent the seller. Therefore, it'd be single agency and that buyer would be signing before even telling you the terms of their offer. An agency disclosure statement saying they understand you only represent the seller and that they are unrepresented. Even though the agency disclosure can be stated in that way, I would also recommend in additional terms of the contract that it fully discloses that this buyer understands that you are part of the selling entity with, and that the buyer has chosen not to have any representation in this transaction. And every email moving forward from you will say, please know, I do not represent you. In the event you would like representation or advice, please contact your own legal counsel or representative. But we don't have compensation to the other side. That's for them to hire and them to get advice. All we have to do is give accounting of this is what the contract says, blank. But if you want to read more into it, you need to then go hire your own because I only have my interest in mind. This one is the one that if you don't do it correctly and you entered into dual agency or limited representation from the beginning, you better give ways out when proper disclosures have been made for that buyer to have the right to cancel. Because that is a change in representation, that is a change in the term, and the courts will see it as we are greedy humans. So I'm not trying to scare you, but that's why you have to be able to recognize it. Because a lot of the time agents that list their home for sale, they're like, well, I want an unrepresented buyer, it will save me money. But will it save you in the long run if they chose that something went wrong? Right? Or I can represent both. No, you can't. Even if you had a 0.01% financial interest or name on a deed with no financial interest, you are fully representing the seller. Everybody cool? Scott, did you have something to add? Okay, I just wanted to check. I actually, Scott's mind is crazy awesome. And he is very systematic and he knows agency like the back of his hand. So if you ever have a minute to get to know Scott, I really recommend you do that. He also knows just about anything and everything with real estate law for fun. So, hey, we're not, oh, it's all good. So that just means he wants a debate. All right. Number 4, you write a contract for a buyer with whom you have no written employment agreement and from whom you have no promise of compensation. Okay, so what does that mean, first of all? It means you don't have a buyer broker agreement. That's all it means. It means you could be working for free because you were not employed. However, that's unfortunately 70% of our industry. And they write an offer for this buyer. Who do you represent typically? Single agency or dual agency? Single agency. Now, the scenario didn't give us enough meat to know what we were in, what property we were applying to. So in the event it was listed with Realty One Group, dual agency. Awesome. Thank you. All right. Number 5, you're holding an open house for a property you have listed for sale and you talk to an unrepresented buyer about writing an offer on that property. So let's start with the basic. They don't want to be represented. What kind of agency is held?
Single.
Single. And then they choose for you to write and represent them.
Dual.
And what form did you pull out before they decided to write with you?
Limited representation.
Consent to limited representation. I don't know how to hone that in enough in our industry that disclosures on agency come before any terms. You have to have the discussions because if the consumer can prove they did not have the discussions with you, and hearsay does work in the consumer world, we have a problem. So always follow the same standard of practice. I wish they would stop doing things upstairs. Okay. Sorry, Bri, I think it's us today and I'm not allowed to complain about us, but that one over there, you're like, just rude. All right, so now we have the way to connect if it's single agency or limited rep. Does anybody have a question on how to figure that out? All right, so fiduciary duties, really simple. Single agency to the seller, you are the seller's advocate. How many fiduciary duties do you have to a client?
Many?
To a client.
7.
Your life, you give them your life. Love you. 6. And for my friends here that said carload, that second A was advocacy, and it is not written in the agency disclosure or law, but it is defined. It is defined. And so we were trained, when, 20 years ago, I'm just gonna say, when we all got our license to learn carload, and they made that second A into advocate or advocacy because they couldn't figure out another acronym. But the word is old car. So if you want to write this down for yourself, if you got it wrong, it's obedience, loyalty, disclosure, confidentiality. Blah, blah, blah. I think I started drinking this morning and it's not coffee. Just joking. Baileys, lots of Baileys now. Accounting. And reasonable skill and care, which is broadly, it's the broadest definition of them all, but covers almost everything. However, in dual agency, how many fiduciaries, they're not actually fiduciaries, how many duties do you owe both parties? Because there will be limited representation. However, there are 4 duties that if you stick to, you will stick to the meaning of limited representation. Okay, and they spell the word hard. It is hard to keep secrets. This is why I buy holiday presents the day before, or I'll have to keep repurchasing because I'm not good at secret keeping. And when I'm in limited representation, I talk out loud to myself in my room where no one can hear me. Because I just have to say it sometimes, like, oh my God. So those are honesty. I cannot lie. Accounting. I am accountable to the timelines of the contract and what the contract calls for, but I am no longer using the fiduciary of accounting to protect. I am only doing it to follow. R, reasonable skill and care based on the area I am practicing within and knowing what needs to be known when it comes to addendas and disclosures, right? And then D is disclosure, but this time, disclosure is not broad to everything I find out, because I can't tell a buyer everything I know now, because that could be detrimental to the seller. And I can't tell the seller everything I know about the buyer now, because that could be detrimental to the buyer, right? But I have to disclose material facts about the house, the buyer's ability to close, or the seller's ability to close. And that's my limitation. Right? So these are limited duties. And so that's the difference between single agency and dual agency. As in single agency, we are truly a golden retriever. Okay, y'all are Disney trained. You see the golden retriever, you say, hi, I love you. And whatever you say, yes, I will sit when you tell me to sit, right? You're obedient, right? To lawful instruction to do with real estate. And then to the other side, I'm more like a Siamese cat. I will let the other side know when I'm going to bite for my client, right? But I will be honest and I will be, I will do hard. So now I become a Siamese cat, so to speak, to both sides. I have to keep a very straight face. What would you like to offer? Great. Is this what you told me you wanted to offer? What would you like to offer? Great. Is this what you told me you wanted me to counter with? I can't put them together and say, well, the buyer said this or the seller said this, right? God, would our life be easy if we could? But then again, would it? Because then how often do humans change their mind in the middle of a thought? Right? I didn't give you permission to say that. I swear I left and you said, but that what you heard and understood might not be what they meant. So you always want to make sure we're just following their instructions, which is the hard part. Another way of thinking of this, if you don't like cats and dogs, which I immensely enjoy cats and dogs, is refs and coach. When you are in single agency, many agents coach each other, right? They coach their client. We don't mean to, but we may give leading statements, right? And limited representation, we become the ref. All we can do is call the shots of what the contract says, but it's up to the coaches on what they do. And now each party is their own coach. So a couple of things I want you to think about before we continue to move on into our scenarios, which will be quite exciting, is how can you set up in today's marketplace a buyer to be prepared for limited representation and a seller to be prepared for limited representation on top of basic disclosures? Does anybody have any ideas?
How to set them up?
How to set them up to be able to coach themselves if that point is ever reached?
I would do it when going through the basic agency form.
You do it and what would you do going through there that's different?
Well, when you hit the thing that says, I can show you listings from my own brokerage, then I would talk about limited representation.
Okay, so you speak to it and teach what it means to them. Okay. Hey, Mark. Go ahead.
So when I do a listing presentation and I talk to a seller about listing their home, I talk about market conditions. One of the things I talk about is how perhaps currently there are either multiple offers or people are coming in lowballing, and then you might want to do this. So some of the strategy with that in a listing. So to prepare them for the limited representation, I would say if the other party is also with Realty One Group, I then cannot talk about this at that point, but you need to know that this is what's happening in the market currently. And if you wanted to offer this, then you have to tell me that. Or if you wanted to ask for seller concessions to help pay your closing costs or your rate buy downs, which are all the big rage right now, you would have to tell me you want that. I can't have that conversation.
So I like to call that, so I'm sorry, we have a new gal up front and her name's Tia. So please say hi today, and she's being trained, and it just happens that it falls on Monday Mastermind Day. So I'm just gonna do a friendly reminder and continue to go.
Yeah, don't forget, I love you all, and I know you're doing it.
Our wall is imaginary. Okay, thanks.
Morning.
It's called, in my opinion, a negotiation discussion. Before I start showing a buyer homes, after they sign a buyer employment agreement with me, I always say we have to have 45 minutes to do a negotiation discussion on how you can set up your offers, because every buyer is going to be slightly different with what their abilities are to do or not to do, right? And then I have a piece of paper that says, okay, here's what I can go up to with sales price. Here's what an escalation clause is. Here's what this is. Here's what that is. Whatever the case is for the marketplace, this is what your ability is. This is what's common. This is what's not. This is what's very high risk prone. This is what could hinder you. This is what could help you, right? Working with their lender, of course. But if I do that before ever showing property, I'm not being detrimental to a potential seller. Right? And then they can go back to that worksheet on their needs and their abilities. And to a seller, it's exactly the same thing. Now that you've signed with me, our next appointment will be, prior to us going live on the market, is a negotiation discussion. And then moving forward with that discussion. And so these are things to think about, because when does limited representation, and Scott, you shared your SOP, your standard of practice, and your understanding on dual agency, which I did not copy for everybody because it's yours, but I'm happy to share a concept of it. When does it actually start? When does limited representation begin?
As soon as you're contemplating showing something that will create it.
Right. So when you have a property at your fingertips that you're going to show, that's when it begins. So if I do this before ever looking at the MLS, before ever looking at the buyer pool, am I harming anybody or setting them both up for success? And am I showing more value as a professional that no other professional is doing? Am I saying working with me means you have a negotiation discussion prior to going into the open market so you understand your abilities? Is that different than my friend over here on the left? This person, not you. This person. Yeah, it is. So are you thinking outside the box on basic agency to have people want to work with you? Are you saying no matter what house you choose from, you should still want to use me? And it's my job to empower you with knowledge. And in the event that it is single agency, at least we already have this worksheet that talks about your abilities. Now, a lot of your clients might be cash. I understand that's 90% of our client pool is cash buyers, no appraisal needed, no problems. They're just gonna win. Like, I get it. But for that 10% that does live budget to budget, is it going to make a huge difference to understand their abilities and what they need and how they can negotiate in between? Right? Because there's 3 zeros behind that comma, no matter what property you purchase. Because if you can find me one that just starts with 2 zeros and it's after a decimal point, I'm buying it. Right? So we want to make sure that we understand that from the beginning. So what we're going to do is some fun. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 professionals and 3 of our amazing affiliates. Yeah, so that's 10. I can do math today, I promise. And we have 3 scenarios. So why don't one of our amazing affiliate apartments partners can join a team, but make sure there's only 1 affiliate partner in each team. And then I want you to break into 3 teams. So 2 teams of 3 and 1 team of 4. And the team that's over here is going to do scenario 1. The team that's left in the middle will do scenario 2. And the team that teams up with Scott will do scenario 3. Aaron, you should pair up with Scott. He's a lot of fun. Carla, go pair up with Scott too.
I don't have a scenario.
Before you leave.
I'm not leaving.
This one?
What I learned really.
Oh, I thought it was,
No.
As soon as I make contact with a new prospective client, I send them a letter that says, here's how real estate in Arizona works. But it's way different here than in another state.
Nice.
And a second letter that says, here's how agency works in Arizona. And here's the things that I can do for you before I become a dual agent. So you will be getting more information from me in my next email. And then I said, before I show you a property or list your property, you're gonna sit with me for one of my presentations, like a prior presentation, it's about 75 pages long. I have a listing presentation that's about 75 pages long. That's not talking about the documents for listing the property. I make them sit for steps. I can do it on FaceTime with them, or I can do it in person. Now, I do anymore, I do a lot of stuff with FaceTime. Because I'm just too lazy to meet with them. So it works out just fine for me, and I also have an audit trail of what I've done. I can prove that I did it, when I did it. Because talking, they will deny it later on if there's a problem. I learned that my first month in the business back in 85. So if you're talking to your clients, forget it. If you don't leave an audit trail, you'll lose.
I love audit trails. It's called follow up in writing, start in writing, finish in writing, be personable in the middle. All right, so let's do our scenarios. Woohoo! All right, you guys got them. You got 5 minutes to work on them. They're going that way. You're here, and then okay, you can be with them. But yeah, I mean, Bree's. I don't care. Bree's over here now.
I think
She got
it's
it.
1 affiliate first.
Yeah.
Go ahead and go that way.
I'm
Go
going
that way.
What's your
Over here.
I'm gonna grab my cup.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can take my chair. I'm not upset.
All right, right here.
So we're scenario 2?
I believe, are we 1 or 2?
2, they're 1.
Okay.
Just while you drink.
What are we doing number 3?
Yes, remember 3. Well, basically, the agent tried to get the listing, didn't get the listing, and then another buyer come on, but during the listing, found out confidential information. Then we found out.
You try to have an inspection done to show that they're full. And then go from there, right? That way you have something,
Yeah, you're not gonna
Right.
be the authority giving the buyer, this is what you should do, and you're not gonna rely on what the seller told you.
Right.
You're gonna investigate it independently.
Probably not. Ethically,
Well, ethically, no,
no.
absolutely not. But it's a question of legally, are you allowed to convey that? Because you never had a signed document.
Right.
That's the question, right? So you never signed anything with yourself, the lister, or the owner.
There's no confidentiality.
Nothing was ever obtained that way, but is the appointment itself confidential? What you learned in an appointment.
No, legally, yeah.
I think you never.
I made those backwards.
Ethically, yes. The question is legally, is it? It's not confidential.
Or is
You think
it
it's
implied?
confidential?
Or is it implied agency?
That's the question.
I think it's
Did you
implied
create
agency,
implied agency by going and meeting them and finding out that information?
probably. I think that is.
So my interpretation.
But did you not have implied agency by going to meet with them and find out that information in the process of trying to get the list? So if the seller told you that they, I mean, in this case, they didn't give a number, but let's say they take $500,000 that they just wanted to invest. And they listed it for $525. Can you tell a buyer, you know that they'll take $500? What?
Because implied agency.
But in that listing appointment, did they have implied agent? I don't know. So do you think if after you went to that appointment and you got it, you didn't get the listing, I know you're ticked off, you didn't get the listing. And a buyer, your buyer calls you and describes this, was like, oh my gosh, I know the perfect home. And we can get it for blah, blah, blah. Can you say that?
Legally.
That's the question. Ethically.
It's different.
Ethically, well, maybe the same.
Well, true.
I've seen a.
If implied agency is in place, then you can't, because you have that implied agency that you cannot disclose that confidential conversation.
And what he said is that you determine agency within a minute.
Because it's implied.
Even though you haven't had a discussion.
Because you haven't signed a document, doesn't mean that agency has.
Oh, count it for me. So,
Yeah, it's been-
no.
It says clearly.
I don't have issues in that.
Confidential.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that I do.
But I always,
Big
I
client,
always have to find if it's been confidential.
You guys already done with yours?
Dang.
You guys are done?
Yeah.
You have a card?
I sure do, yes.
Could I get?
Yes.
You have to pay for it?
No. Well, actually.
First one's free.
7 days.
So you're saying the closing document, you require 40.
I don't.
So you didn't give me the answer.
In that we protect it.
I'm trying to determine if there's implied agency.
I know. I just wrote it.
Or into the agency.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Here, I'm gonna get another pen.
Thank you.
Your nails are really. How long have you guys been here at this office?
Not implied.
So.
A month? Okay. Where'd you guys come from?
Stanley?
Well, then, like, okay. Very cool.
Can't help that, you know.
From Keller Williams.
Keller Williams, nice. I was on the agent side for a while and then,
You doing good?
and then I came over to. Tech agent. So I get your needs.
Good.
Yep.
I know.
I understand. A little different than us. Happy to help you guys. Yeah, you guys should come to the grand opening too.
It's on the calendar.
It's gonna be super fun.
We also have the Cromford report
Cromford, Wednesday.
Wednesday. Don't ask me what time. It's in your newsletter. Okay.
That's it.
That's good.
There's no finding
It's at SAR, right?
unless it's disclosed.
Oh.
You have the agency.
All right, guys, we're gonna bring it back because this is a good time, good thoughts. All right, so we're gonna start with scenario one. Since I read really fast, I'm gonna go ahead and read it, and then I'm gonna pass it on to this amazing team. You got this, Chickadee. You too, Buzz. Are you happy? All right, here we go. Stanley represents the buyer of a larger home in an established neighborhood. The buyer asks about 2 large trees near the end of the driveway that do not appear to be healthy and look like they are starting to cause cracking damage to the driveway. When he asks the seller about the trees, the sellers tell him that they don't think there's anything wrong with them. However, Stanley is not sure and somewhat concerned due to the location and proximity to the home. If you are the real estate professional representing the buyer, how would you proceed?
So we said that we would have the buyer investigate independently, so maybe like an inspection to see, you know, if those trees are really there. Like if they're really not, since he's not sure, you know, we just want to make sure that it is.
And how many days do you have to get that done within?
We got 10 days
10 days typically based,
Typically, yeah.
yeah, okay.
based on the purchase contract.
And who would you probably recommend that the buyer that you represent hires?
Give them 3 options.
Well, really 3 options?
If I have 3 options.
If you have 3 options, right? But what type of inspector? It's an arborist. And no, I did not know that answer the first time I taught this course. But thank God the book tells me. So for yourself, trees, we hire arborists. Or go to Moon Valley because they seem to be everywhere in the valley and ask them, hey, do you have someone that could look at the roots? And they'll probably have recommendations for arborists. But at the end of the day, we only recommend who we have experience with, or we disclose, I have no experience with this company. And when we recommend anybody to a buyer, what should we say?
Please do your own investigation.
Yeah, research.
Do your own research and investigations. Let me know when you have this scheduled, or let me know when you're prepared for me to call and at least schedule them. But please know, I will not be paying for it on your behalf, and I will be not asking more questions on your behalf, but I will be present on your behalf so I can understand as well with you. Because it's not for us to inspect and investigate. Do you know why we're lucky to be Arizona and not California? Because they actually have to investigate a property in which they're selling. Did you know that? Ew, high liability. Whoa.
Yeah, wow.
I know, right? I was like, say what? All right, scenario 2. I'm going to say it really fast and I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Benjamin gives a listing presentation to the Jamesons who are looking to sell their home. During the listing presentation, they disclose to Benjamin that they'll do whatever it takes to sell the home quickly. A couple of weeks later, they list the property with another agent. The nerve. About the same time, the Jamesons list the home with someone else. A buyer approaches Benjamin and signs a representation agreement with him. Based on what the buyer has identified as what he would like in a home, Benjamin shows the Jamesons home and the buyer decides to make an offer on the Jamesons property. Is the information obtained from the Jamesons considered confidential?
We said,
We came to the conclusion, no.
but ethically, maybe.
Ethically, maybe, but actually, no, because
Maybe.
the broker has to imply that,
Then again, I-
fine. The broker has to imply an intention to create agency relationship, and then the seller has to consent.
You looked up the answer.
She did.
So all of,
We were really torn. I mean, we were just going back and forth.
The question was, did implied agency exist from that meeting?
and the answer is it depends, right? It's who can prove a better case. But according to AARonline.com, which is a great resource of information on where these questions originated from, there was no contractual agreement. And we hope that a realtor did what they're supposed to do from the very beginning and say, hey, unless you sign with me, these items do not apply.
That's what it says, yeah, to
Yeah.
avoid the situation and any implied agency, a broker could explain to the seller early in the listing presentation that no agency relationship will exist until the seller enters into a listing agreement with the broker.
Great job, guys. Yeah, but it does feel like it could be
But
implied,
yeah, we were-
right? So if an agent does what agents are famous to do, and they can't prove what Scott proved a moment ago, right? Like his audit trail. And as soon as you show up for a listing presentation, typically, what is the first thing a seller wants to do with you?
Talk.
And tour the house, right? And as they tour the house and become pouty and tell you all the stories about the hallway, and you give empathy and you understand where they're coming from because you want them to like you, what should you have done? Stop them and sat at the table and went over that agency discussion. And had I'm gonna use that forever now, Scott, had your audit trail set up from pre-listing as, please note, until you elect to hire me as your real estate professional, nothing will be treated as confidential. And that's the biggest piece to me, is everyone assumes confidentiality, but it should never be an assumption. So way to go, you guys knocked it out of the park. All right, scenario 3.
Thanks, Scott. No, not that, it's Scott. I think you wrote that article, sorry.
Drucker wrote that one, not Michelle did. It's cool. They are prior to 2022, all of these on AAR online. So will be fun to see Nikki's responses moving forward as well. Nikki Selgit. All right, scenario 3. Janice lists a home in a popular subdivision. The seller wants to list the home for 5% over what Janice believes to be fair asking price. Oh, that never happens because it doesn't amount to a very substantial difference. Janice agrees to list the home at the higher amount. During the first month of the listing, a home on the same street with the same floor plan is listed and sold for $25,000 less than Janice's listing. A couple of weeks later, an interested buyer contacts Janice to make an offer on the property. What, if anything, is Janice required to disclose to the buyer?
If this property is still for sale, we would look at your.
What if the unrepresented buyer says, can you provide comps in the area or close properties in the area?
Cannot and will not.
You have to provide that information, but you don't have to, you don't edit it all, you just give the
I don't
list
have
of
to
homes.
provide it.
Scott's actually right on this
You
one.
don't, okay?
Yeah, I love that though, because it feels like if you do the feeling part of real estate, like which I do a lot, it feels like you should provide any information requested. But comparables are considered and close properties in an area are considered public knowledge. Therefore, a buyer should investigate and inspect all things, including price points for themselves. And the minute you provide something that does not justify that list price that you and the seller have come up with, you have done something detrimental to your seller. No one said you had to lie, but you did not have to provide. And you could be found in violation of fiduciary to the one who you work for. Does that make sense? So thank you guys. Carla, did you agree with Scott? Not that you're gonna say no right now. All right, awesome. Well, that was a little bit of fun. We're just gonna do a couple, oh, you can stay.
Oh,
Am I too close to you?
no.
Are you good?
I don't mind.
Yeah, you can find him.
I'm gonna get my coffee.
We're gonna just have a couple open discussions. But before we do, let's do, I know this is, it says quick review because this is actually unit 4 of the book, but it doesn't hurt to do some fun stuff. So I find quizzes to be fun and they're only 3 questions. And there's always somebody when I teach 3-hour courses that were like, there were too many group activities and not enough individual activities. And I'm like, real estate's a group activity, but that's okay. I'll get over it one day. So why don't we do some individual activity for a second? And why don't you guys answer the questions for unit 4?
I know the ones are so long. I was like, I have to get them shorter.
Really? Those are shorter?
Yeah,
Oh
they
my
should like
God.
cut off like.
Oh, they
half
were
of
so
it.
pretty. They look
were
like Crayola
so
crayons.
long.
They were so cool.
Yeah.
But that sparkle is just like,
Yeah.
I used to do that.
we're
A
just
lot of
not.
maintenance.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna show you what I bought, and I did Ashley's nail. I cannot do that, but Ashley went to prom this weekend, and I bought one of those like little home gel kits.
Oh.
They were great. Yeah, she looks great. I'm not gonna say I look like that, but it looks good.
If it looks presentable, I'm good.
It's so fun, and it only took like 10 minutes of our life away. But you should keep doing what you do because it makes me happy to look at your nails. All right, number 1, true or false?
False.
Anybody say true? Okay, then we're moving on. It was false. Number 2, true or false?
True.
Yes, anybody say false? And again, it says one of the values of using the form. It doesn't say the only value of using the form. Here's the issue in our industry and why Scott said this class should be mandatory for everybody in the world that's in real estate. And I agree that agency discussions should be a prereq to getting your license, just like contract writing is. And this is a great thing. Hey, Scott, I'll give you the new commission's email address. You should email her before allowing, because that would be an awesome new mandate.
Anonymous.
Okay, I'll email her on behalf of Scott Kurt. Okay. All right, as long as it is in writing, a licensee can disclose to the other party that the seller will accept a price or terms other than stated in the listing, or that the buyer will accept a price and terms other than offered. And let's assume when it says as long as it is in writing that they mean by the buyer or the seller. True or false?
I said false.
This Melissa didn't even answer it. She's like,
True. Yeah, I put true.
all right. The answer is if the seller has given you written instruction that they will allow you to state to a buyer in dual agency a different amount, then yes, you can. But unless I have it in writing, there is no way I'm going to go off a conversation and the seat of my pants and be like, well, they said, right? If a buyer will put in writing that they will do something other than what they offered in that counter, and they're giving me permission to say it in writing, I will read verbatim of what they put in writing. But unless it's in writing, I will not go off the seat of my pants and say, we won't believe what the buyer just said they would agree to. I am not going to ever verbally put them together unless they put it in writing, giving me lawful instruction. Does that make sense? So the answer is true.
Can I throw out there in the listing contract, we now have a phrase that says, oh, I'm not gonna be able to quote it, basically says that you are allowed to disclose other offers, but they added and the terms of those offers. So in your conversation with the seller, you have to decide how much of the rest of that sentence they're granting you the right to disclose. So I always talk to my sellers, yes, I'll disclose you have other offers, but not the terms and conditions of those other offers.
That's interesting, Melissa, because I'm to my sellers, in single agency only,
Yeah,
I'll discuss the whole thing with my client's permission to understand that nothing in real estate is considered confidential. And why would I waste Joe's time if Joe can't compete with what I have on the table? And why am I going to get my client less money and just tell Joe, make your highest and best, when I could have said, hey, they're asking for 2%, so come in with a clean offer, you know, and prove to me you can. So that's a different negotiation tactic in two different styles, and neither is wrong as long as the seller gives the permissions, as long as the seller gives permission. But the moment I receive an offer that would put me in limited rep, how much can be disclosed?
than other offers.
Yes, you have to be honest. Remember honesty. I have other offers on the table. Can you tell me how high they are? No. I can tell you nothing, because that moment I am doing something detrimental to a buyer who's also represented by Ron Kopis. See, you and I have to take ourselves completely out. Who's the DB? Who owns the deal? Because that's how dual agency comes down, right? So we had 5 offers on the table. They were all single agency. We're going back and forth. We're sharing. The moment we get that 6th offer from a Realty One Group agent, all conversations cease. Now, if that buyer from Realty One Group says you can share my offer as long as I know what the other offers are, have a heyday, get it in writing. But I'm going to tell you one thing right now, no buyer in their right mind would give that permission. Right? So are we all good there? Cool. You guys are so much fun this morning. I appreciate you so much. So we're going to go to number 3 in the back area. And I think I'll bring this out a few more times throughout the year when it comes to our trainings. But it's 10:56, so let's leave this on a high note. And these are agency dilemmas. So this is a conversation. 2 different licensees within the same brokerage. During the inspection period, the buyer decided to cancel. The buyer's agent contacted his manager to get guidance on what to write in the cancellation notice, and then based on the manager's advice, wrote a letter of cancellation. Had the buyer sign it and submit it to escrow. Was that correct or wrong?
Why not use the bins?
Send this minute to the other agent. Not escrow.
Oh, well, we can submit it. Right. So speaking to our escrow officer, he's like, for God's sake, put the other agent's email on there.
Right.
So you're totally going to the part that says submitted to escrow. Now, per the contract, in the escrow instructions, anytime escrow receives something, they are to share it and it's considered shareable to all parties, in which case it should be. But if you read for Art's point, the delivery status on page 9 of the contract, it is only considered delivered when sent to the emails on page 10. Right? So we should be sending it to the other agent and actually CCing escrow and not depending on escrow. So that's one item of this limited representation issue. I love that. Thank you.
You just do the bin there?
Okay, so the buyer's inspection notice and seller's response is a form that is written into our standard contract. However, it's not the do-all form. So you can cancel on the buyer's inspection notice, and I do appreciate that comment. However, if we gave a list not using the buyer's inspection notice that was signed by the buyer, that is also considered the termination of their 10 days. So the binser's a tool, but not the only tool that can be utilized. It's just a standard of practice. So I like the mindset, but that's actually not the issue with this paragraph. But I like it, and thank you. Come on, look at it deeper. What is the issue in this paragraph?
I have
Dual
to
agency.
because it doesn't state the reason for the cancellation.
And who gave the reason for the cancellation?
Manager.
And is that taking sides? Who should be giving the reason for the cancellation?
Buyer.
The buyer.
And should the buyer's agent, who is acting in limited rep, be writing the reason the buyer gives?
Yeah.
Can the buyer's agent direct the buyer to section 6A of the contract and then ask them for the reason? Yeah,
So they should have said buyer's agent contacted the buyers to get guidance, not the manager.
correct. See, when you call me, I need you to say who we represent. And I mean both parties. Is a single agent and is limited. I always ask more questions before I answer you typically, right? Because my answer is going to depend if I'm a neutral mindset, right? And I'm abiding just by the contract, or if I'm a coach and I'm advocating for the contract. I'm not trying to be stickler. I'm not trying to be hard, right? But it is a hard deal if you hinder the other side or do something detrimental instead of following through with what you're with the parties in which you represent fully. So that's why agents or brokers are so like, well, who do you represent? Well, it's our office that represents this, but Joe from North Scottsdale, no, Ron Copus represents them all. And by the way, if you haven't met Ron yet, he sits in the Arrowhead office. He's very, very kind. I know Scott's met him. And he has a really nice mind, and he really has the belief that everybody can solve it and we all can come together at the end of the day. And I love Art came directly from escrow and said, will you guys stop just emailing me? Like, email us all. Make sure my email is correct on section 3A, and then email who is to be delivered to. And then to Scott's next point, transaction coordinators, unless listed in the contract as a person that you can give notice of delivery to and they are licensed, that is a courtesy when we email them. That is not an obligation of the contract. And so if you're using that for yourselves right now, it always goes to the professional's email that's listed on page 10. Cool?
I have a letter I give, as soon as I open an escrow that goes to the other agent. that says, I'm only gonna communicate with the people on page 7. You want me to do with somebody else? We'll do an addendum to the contract, we'll add their name to the contract, and I will be happy to communicate with them. But unless I get that, I'm not doing it.
And what I love about that is that that is actually not being a stickler. That's pure disclosure to the parties. See, that's where agents go, well, why can't you just help me out? Because it's not about you and me. It's about the buyer and the seller. And the buyer and the seller should always, always know who's being communicated with and who's working on whose behalf. Or it's misrepresentation to the public. And who has the fiduciary to the public?
We do.
The Department of Real Estate.
Oh.
But yeah, we absolutely do. I like that bravery. It's like, we should be good to the public. I agree. So now that the commissioner that we have in place is actually making real effective change to protect the public, let's be on the up and up and always make sure that in everything we do, that those parties have full control and that we're just here to help facilitate a transaction. With that, guys, it's been a great hour of time with you and I loved every moment of it and I can't wait for you to sell a house.
Thanks,
And